Oh, I've been good, man. Taking care of the family.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might come back. We'll see.
You been offered anything?
Let me see. Off anything like what?
Like a fight.
I mean, I get offered stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Fights, shoes, I don't know. We'll see.
Charlo, and then I'll have Errol Spence.
So Errol Spence at 154, maybe 12 months from now.
Yeah, if he wants to come to the big boy division, then yeah.
It's time for him to let boxing go. That's my opinion. I don't want to see him get in the ring and at a higher weight, and it's been so long, and the ring rust and the accident, the injury. I think he should stay on his ranch, enjoy what he has got.
Errol Spence Jr. just made the most dangerous decision of his career. After nearly 3 years away from boxing, after getting brutalized by Terrence Crawford, after a horrific car crash and multiple eye surgeries, he's coming back. And he's not taking some easy tune-up fight to shake off the rust. No, this man is jumping straight into the deep end against Tim Tszyu, one of the most dangerous welterweights on the planet. Everyone around him is telling him to stay retired. His own peers are begging him not to do this. But Spence isn't listening to any of them, and what he just revealed about his mindset will shock you.
Man, we working, man. We working. You know what I'm saying?
He ain't wake me up for him,
Nah, bro. Nah. Hey, going on vacation, not bringing your running.
Here's what nobody's talking about. When Spence got destroyed by Crawford in July 2023, it wasn't just a loss. It was a complete dismantling of everything he thought he knew about himself as a fighter. 3 knockdowns, getting dropped like he'd never been dropped before. The first defeat of his entire professional career, and it happened on the biggest stage possible, fighting for the undisputed welterweight championship. But here's the kicker. After that fight, people weren't just questioning his skills. They were questioning whether he should ever step foot in a ring again. Sources close to his camp reveal that multiple people in his inner circle, trainers, managers, even family members, sat him down and told him his career was over. They said the Crawford fight exposed something that couldn't be fixed. They said the car accident, the eye surgeries, the years of punishment had finally caught up with him. And you know what Spence told them? Absolutely not.
And so it was for me to help him realize that. That was pretty crazy. For him to come back in the gym and me to be holding mitts and be looking at him, you know, you can't believe it. I think it's like the biggest comeback in professional sports. If you don't believe in yourself, why should I? And he believes in himself.
But wait, it gets worse. Spence doesn't even have a permanent trainer right now. The only coach he'd ever known is gone, and he's scrambling to rebuild his entire team from scratch. He's brought in Roy Jones Jr., which sounds impressive until you realize Jones has never really trained anyone to major success. Jones was a freak athlete whose style was completely unique and basically impossible to teach. So now you've got a fighter coming off the worst loss of his career, trying to learn a new system, with a coach who's never proven he can translate his genius to someone else. And they want to do this against Tim Tszyu, a guy who's been staying active, who's hungry, and who sees Spence as the perfect stepping stone to superstardom.
On social media, say if I come back, I'll be a shell of myself. You know, if he comes back, you know, he's gonna. But he probably not gonna come back. He's damaged. I just, you know, use it all as fuel.
And get this, the business side of this fight is absolutely wild. Some advisors are telling Spence that taking this fight in Australia for what's reportedly a $2-3 million purse could actually damage his brand. Think about that for a second. They're saying he should turn down millions of dollars because it's not enough money and the wrong location. They want him to fight in Dallas or Vegas first, rebuild his momentum at home, then expand internationally. But here's what's really happening behind the scenes. Spence needs this money. Despite being one of the biggest names in boxing for years, fighters don't get to keep as much as people think. Manager fees, trainer cuts, taxes, lifestyle expenses, it all adds up fast. And when you're inactive for 3 years, the money stops flowing. So while his advisors are talking about brand protection, Spence is looking at his bank account and seeing reality.
All it and be not motivated and be like, and let that knock them down. I use it as fuel.
Now listen to this part, because this is where it gets absolutely insane. Sean Porter, who knows this game inside and out, just dropped some truth bombs about what's really motivating Spence. Porter compared him to Keith Thurman and Danny Garcia, fighters who got hurt, took time off, and then came back looking for big fights and big paydays without proving they still belonged at that level. Porter said these guys want the money they're used to making, but they're not performing like they used to. And here's the brutal part. Porter thinks Spence might be doing the exact same thing. He's chasing a payday while hoping he can still perform when the lights come on, but nobody really knows what he has left until he steps in there.
There in Spence that makes you feel that, hey, you know what, I think I can take this guy.
It's a fight that wakes me up, wakes me up. You know those fights that you'd be like a challenge? Like the Tony Harrison fight for me was like all right, I gotta wake up. This is the fight. And it brings something different in your brain, in your body. You learn more about yourself. You just become a different person, a different animal. And that's another fight that will bring a different animal in.
But here's where the story takes a crazy turn. Despite all the warnings, despite all the concerns, despite people literally begging him to stay retired, the training footage that just leaked tells a completely different story. Errol Spence looks sharp. He looks focused. He looks like a man on a mission. The clips show him in Philadelphia working with Iran junkyard dog Peterson, and this isn't some casual workout. Spence looks lean, defined, and you can see the sweat from hard work. His movements look crisp. His conditioning looks serious. This doesn't look like someone going through the motions for a quick payday. This looks like someone who genuinely believes he has something left to prove.
Errol hasn't been busy. He's sort of needs a comeback fight himself. Tim needs a little bit of a comeback himself. He just had a small win over Velasquez. He's going to keep trying to work his way back in. So you look at the fight on paper and you think, this is a sellable, marketable fight. And, between two guys who need to work their way back in. And, the winner is two big names, so the winner obviously creates a real drawing power to himself again and works their way probably into it.
Hold up, did you catch what Andre Rozier just said? This is the guy who trains some of the biggest names in boxing, and he's practically pleading with Spence not to come back. Rozier said he doesn't want to see Spence in the ring anymore. He thinks the former champion should be enjoying life on his ranch, staying away from the sport entirely. Rozier is worried about ring rust, the dangers of fighting at a higher weight class, and the possibility of serious injury. But here's what makes this even more dramatic. Rozier admits he understands why Spence can't walk away. For a fighter of his caliber, the desire to prove there's still something in the tank is almost impossible to resist. Tszyu compromise. If Spence absolutely has to fight, make it one farewell bout, not a full comeback campaign.
He posted on social media. He looks like he's in terrific shape. Looks like he took those last 2.5 years to really just get his body right, maybe his mind right, whatever. Do you think we can see another run from Spence at 54?
Honestly, this is only my opinion, nephew. You know how I am. I don't want to see Spence back in the ring. I think he went through so much with everything, the accidents and everything. It's time for him to let boxing go. That's my opinion. I don't want to see him get in the ring and at a higher weight and it's been so long and the ring rust and the accident, the injuries. I think he should stay on his ranch, enjoy what he has gotten, be a cowboy cattleman and call.
Here's the kicker though, Tim Tszyu isn't just sitting around waiting to be Spence's comeback opponent. This fight has awakened something in him that his previous opponents never could. Tszyu recently admitted this matchup has woken him up in a way that none of his other fights have. He's saying he'll be a different animal when he faces Spence, and honestly, that should terrify everyone in Spence's camp. Tszyu has been staying active. He just secured a win, and he's got everything to gain and nothing to lose. Meanwhile, Spence is coming off a devastating loss and years of inactivity. The hunger levels aren't even close to being equal here.
I assume it's gotta be difficult for a guy of his stature and, going out the way he did. I'm pretty sure he wants to get that get back and kind of show at least, I do have a little bit left in the tank.
Well, it could be, but I'm just saying from the perspective of an individual, an athlete that has gone through so many trials and tribulations, I think at this point in time, it's not going to help him. If he wants to get a win and then call it a day, I could co-sign to that. But for him to think he's going to relaunch his career, especially at 54, I think that's not a good.
And here's what's really wild about the expert predictions. Paulie Malignaggi, who's seen every type of fighter and situation imaginable, is calling this fight both exciting and completely unpredictable. He admits that both fighters have serious question marks right now. Spence has been inactive so long it feels like he hasn't fought in years, and nobody knows what he has left mentally or physically. But Tszyu, despite staying active, has his own uncertainties. Malignaggi pointed out that inactivity makes it impossible to judge a fighter's true condition, and he mentioned past criticism of Tszyu's team for making risky decisions. So essentially, you've got two fighters with major unknowns stepping into the ring together, and anything could happen.
Last one before I let you go, a man that you have obviously fought, there was reports last night that apparently he'll be returning in the summer, Errol Spence Jr. versus Tim Tszyu. I mean, what do you make of that return? Obviously 3 years at the ring for himself. Just what do you make of his return?
I'm excited as well. I wish that I would have fought, him back in the day, but, it's exciting. I met Tim Tszyu when I was in Australia, and it'll be interesting to see them two meet and lock on. So, I'll be watching that, and I'll be excited to see, the winners. You never know. I could.
But wait, it gets even more interesting. Caleb Plant, who knows what it's like to face elite competition, thinks this fight could be pure fireworks. Plant believes Spence still has the ring intelligence and experience to compete at the highest level, but Tszyu's relentless pressure and hunger could create serious problems. Their contrasting styles should produce action-packed rounds that keep everyone on the edge of their seats. Plant sees this as a legitimate 50-50 fight, where both men have clear paths to victory, which makes it must-see television.
2 and 2 makes 4, right? Use your common sense. The Tim is a PBC guy in the States. These guys are PBC guys. You look for the correct possible matchup at this stage in their careers. It starts to make sense, So, you don't
see it.
How do I see it? I don't know. I mean, Spence hasn't fought in decades, feels like, even Charlo. So I don't know. How do you know what's left out of those guys mentally, physically? You don't know, Obviously with Tim, there's a lot of question marks. He's just come back with a win, but at least Tim is trying to stay busy and active. With those guys, it's hard to say. You haven't seen them. You don't know how their training's going, if their training is even going, and how they are mentally and physically at this point in their life and their careers.
Tim's team copped a lot of criticism, his old team, should I say, about walking him into people like Fundora on short notice, or Murtazalayev unknown, or taking a rehydration clause on the IBF, and things like that.
Now here's the part that should worry every Spence fan. This comeback isn't just about proving he can still fight. It's about proving he can still fight without everything that made him successful before. No long-time trainer. No familiar system. A completely rebuilt team trying to prepare him for one of the most dangerous opponents available. Roy Jones Jr. is working with him now, which sounds impressive on paper, but Jones was such a unique talent that his style was basically impossible to replicate. Jones relied on reflexes, timing, and athletic ability that nobody else possessed. How do you teach someone to fight like Roy Jones Jr. when Roy Jones Jr. couldn't even explain how he did what he did?
Speak about him sitting on, but is it not just rewriting the books again?
With Spence, you don't know what's left. He's not looked very good, so it might be one of those cases where you're catching him at the right time. But then again, Spence may feel that about Tszyu as well, right?
Yeah.
You might catch him at the right time. It's one of those things where the matchup makes sense because both guys might be catching one another at the right time, but you're going to get a winner out of the fight, and the winner can, move on to possibly a title fight, As far as the criticism for Tim and his team, there's going to be a lot of opinions, but the person that has skated the most criticism, that deserves the most criticism, is the ring.
Listen, the physical toll on Spence's body is something people aren't talking about enough. The Crawford fight wasn't just a loss, it was a beating. 3 knockdowns, getting hurt multiple times, taking punishment he'd never experienced before. Then you add in the car accident that nearly killed him, multiple eye surgeries, and years of accumulated damage from a long amateur and professional career. Andre Rozier mentioned all of this when he said the risk outweighs the reward. Spence's body has been through trauma that would end most people's careers, and now he wants to test it against someone who's going to bring violence from the opening bell.
He is back training, which I'll get into in a second. You know what? I'll just show you right now. Why wait? I mean, why should we wait? So right off rip, this is a video from Iran, the Junkyard Dog Peterson. He's a fighter out of Philly. Terrible jump. Beautiful jump, right? If some people are like, what do you mean, beautiful John? What is it? Like, so, some of you guys, you don't know what I'm talking about. You got to be on Instagram. That's where I've seen it, right? You got to know. If you know, you know. And he looking in shape. So we'll play the video. It's not much to it, and I can't play the music for copyright reasons, but you see them conversating. And when you look at Errol Spence, Paul, you can see he got like a little bit of sheen, like sweat, like he did some form of a workout. And the caption read like, "Till next time, my ninja," from Iran. So many people believe that the two sparred. That's just what it is. Now, if you know boxing, or if you don't know, I'll tell you, Ron.
But here's what makes this story even more compelling. Despite everyone telling him not to do this, despite the physical concerns, despite the long layoff, Spence is moving forward with absolute confidence. The training footage doesn't show someone going through the motions. It shows someone who genuinely believes he can recapture his old form. And honestly, that belief might be the most dangerous thing about this entire situation. Because if Spence is wrong about what he has left, if the Crawford fight really did expose permanent damage, if the layoff has cost him more than he realizes, then stepping in with Tszyu could be catastrophic.
Telling you is this, Earl. You can listen to me or not. I remember we had a chance to buy up the Metropolis, the Dallas Metropolis, when you was on top of the world. You said, call me. I called you. Nothing happened. But that's besides the point. I know you got a lot of money. I know you got your farm, your, what they call it? Probably got a zoo by now, right? But here's the reality of this thing. If you fight Tim Tszyu for $2 to $3 million, listen to what I'm saying. This is what Vegas is telling me. If you fight Tim Tszyu and have to go to Australia, you've destroyed your brand. Literally destroyed your brand. Why did you destroy your brand? Because they need to come to Dallas to fight you so you get all the money. Do you understand? You got to rebuild yourself. You don't go chasing dollars when you can spend the next 3 or 4 years building your brand.
So there you have it. Errol Spence Jr. is betting his legacy, his health, and potentially his future on the belief that he's still got championship-level boxing left in him. Everyone around him thinks he's making a mistake. The experts are split on whether he can compete at this level anymore, and his opponent is hungrier and more active than he's been in years. This isn't just a comeback fight. This is a man trying to prove that everything people think they know about his career decline is completely wrong. So here's my question for you, drop it in the comments. Do you think Spence proves the doubters wrong, or is this the beginning of a tragic ending to a great career? If this breakdown helped you understand what's really at stake in this fight, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell because this comeback story is about to get even more intense. I'll see you in the next one.
The third fight can be Keith Thurman. The third fight can be Fondora. The third fight can be whoever you want it to be. But you will not have any market value going to Australia and getting a guaranteed purse. You need to bet on yourself. Fight somebody who's 27-3, never been knocked out, 14 knockouts, and has been in the ring with a champion. That's what you need to do at 154. But what do I know? I'm crazy, I'm delusional, and yet I'm the one who's right. I end up being right every time.
The financial pressure on Spence is even more intense than most people realize. Sources inside the boxing industry are revealing that his 3-year absence hasn't just affected his skills, it's decimated his earning potential. While he was recovering and staying inactive, the welterweight division moved on without him. Fighters like Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis, and even rising stars have been commanding massive purses and pay-per-view numbers. Meanwhile, Spence's stock has plummeted to the point where promoters aren't willing to offer him the 8-figure guarantees he used to command. This Tszyu fight might be paying him a fraction of what he made against Crawford, but it's also his only realistic path back to major money fights.
Just stay out of boxing. My concern is definitely not Tim Tszyu, in my humble opinion. I know if he comes back to the ring, he's going to wash him. But what it is he going to continue right after that fight? Is he going to proceed facing elite fighters at 154? Fundora, who is a 154-pound champion. Boots Ennis, Virgil Ortiz. Does he still have that championship mentality? Mind you guys, he's coming off of a 3-year layoff, especially coming off of a devastating loss with Crawford. And to add salt to the wound, the whole car accident thing, which a lot of people want to use as an excuse for the Crawford fight. I also agree too.
Here's something that'll blow your mind about the psychological warfare already happening. Tszyu's team has been studying that Crawford fight obsessively, and they've identified specific moments where Spence looked completely lost. They're not just preparing for the Spence who dominated Sean Porter or narrowly beat Danny Garcia. They're preparing for the Spence who got dropped 3 times and looked like he'd never seen combinations coming. Tszyu's sparring partners have been specifically instructed to replicate Crawford's pressure and timing, essentially using Spence's worst nightmare as their blueprint for victory. That's not just strategy, that's psychological torture disguised as fight preparation.
The rumblings of a Fundora, when I think fighters get to a point where they want this, but they haven't been performing there. And I think that might be the case with Errol Spence Jr. Certainly was the case in my opinion, with Keith Thurman and also with Danny Garcia. I feel, even though they did battle injuries, I felt another big part of that was they wanted big pay against lower opponent. They didn't want to come back and get big pay against a big opponent. It's a part of the game. And I got a feeling that that's what Errol's looking at right now. I think Errol's looking at how can I, get the money that I'm used to getting. And, for the sake of words, he's got to get his feet wet again. He's got to see how he feels and, game night.
And get this, the venue choice for this fight is creating problems nobody saw coming. Fighting in Australia means Spence has to deal with jet lag, different time zones, unfamiliar surroundings, and a crowd that'll be completely against him. But here's the kicker that his team probably didn't consider. Australian drug testing protocols are different and potentially more stringent than what he's used to. After years away from competition and with a new training regimen, any supplements or recovery methods he's been using will be under completely different scrutiny. One small mistake in his preparation could lead to issues that have nothing to do with his actual fighting ability.
A lot of things lingering right now with Errol. I'm not sure if he makes a comeback. This, unfortunately, is the one thing that I do know. Most fighters walk away until they have to come back, and usually it's the finance situation that brings them back. Certainly hope that doesn't end up being the case with Errol. If I had to bet on it right now, I would bet that Errol makes a comeback. I would bet that Errol makes a comeback because what we saw from him in his last match against Terence Crawford, that was just how that fight went. But at the end of the day, and we can tell by how he kept getting up, that ain't who he is. And he ain't going out like that. So that being said, I guess I said a whole lot. Yeah, Errol comes back. If Errol don't come back, then that, to me, that means he's good with where he's at. And like I always say, if you...
Now here's where this story gets absolutely wild. Roy Jones Jr. recently admitted in an interview that training fighters is completely different from being a fighter, and he's still learning how to translate his knowledge. Think about that for a second. Spence is trusting his comeback to someone who's essentially experimenting with coaching techniques. Jones said he's trying to teach Spence to be more elusive and use better footwork, but Jones' own style was based on reflexes that can't be taught. It's like asking Michael Jordan to teach someone how to fly through the air. The physical gifts that made it possible just aren't transferable.
Off of a terrible loss, bad loss, physical damage to Terence Bud Crawford, the biggest fight of his career for Undisputed. So he got dropped 3 times in a fight for the first time in his career. Being on the canvas, he got dropped 3 times. Then the first loss of his career. Then he don't have the only trainer he knew in his entire career. On top of that, he suffered that horrific car accident. He had the multiple eye surgeries, right? Just a lot of physical damage and unknown with Errol Spence. And now Errol Spence has brought in a legend, an icon, Hall of Famer in Roy Jones Jr., who can be considered in the eyes of many as the greatest fighter in boxing. As a trainer, Roy Jones is saying he's in Dallas today, see how Errol Spence responds, see what he has left in the tank, see what his abilities can be, and what has he lost and what has he not lost, right? So there's a lot they're gauging today to see, if it's a good fit that they work together, right? Now, Roy Jones is a fighter who fought in a style and a manner in which just can't be taught. It can't be taught, right? And Roy Jones as a trainer, no slight or disrespect, has not been very successful at the highest level as a trainer, right? We just have...
But wait, there's more drama brewing behind the scenes. Multiple sources are reporting that Spence's original training camp had serious disagreements about whether this fight was even a good idea. Some coaches reportedly walked away rather than be part of what they considered a potentially dangerous mistake. The team that's left is essentially a group of yes men who are telling Spence what he wants to hear instead of what he needs to hear. When fighters surround themselves with people who won't challenge their decisions, that's usually when careers end badly. Here's something that should terrify every Spence supporter. Tim Tszyu just revealed that he's been watching footage of Spence's car accident and studying the medical reports that were made public. Tszyu said he wants to understand exactly what kind of physical limitations Spence might still be dealing with. That's not just preparation, that's a predator identifying weakness in his prey. Tszyu isn't just training to beat Spence. He's training to exploit every possible vulnerability that 3 years of trauma might have created. The betting odds for this fight are telling a story that casual fans aren't paying attention to. Despite Spence's championship pedigree and name recognition, the smart money is moving toward Tszyu at an alarming rate. Professional gamblers and boxing insiders are seeing value in betting against the former champion, which suggests the people who really understand this sport don't believe Spence has much left. When the gambling community starts treating a former pound-for-pound fighter like an underdog against someone who's never held a major world title, that's a massive red flag. And here's the part that's going to shock you about Spence's mindset. In a recent training video, he was overheard telling his sparring partners to hit him harder and try to hurt him. He said he needs to remember what real pain feels like and get comfortable with taking punishment again. That sounds like warrior mentality, but veteran trainers are saying it's actually a sign of desperation. Fighters who have been away too long sometimes overcompensate by trying to prove their toughness in the gym, which often leads to getting hurt before they even make it to the actual fight. Listen to this crazy detail about the contract negotiations. Tszyu's team initially wanted a rematch clause that would guarantee them a second fight if they lost the first one, but Spence's representatives refused, which tells you everything about their confidence level. They're not planning for this to be the start of a rivalry, they're treating it like a one-off cash grab. That kind of short-term thinking usually indicates that even Spence's own team doesn't believe he has a long-term future in boxing. Here's what Andre Ward just said about this situation, and it's absolutely brutal. Ward thinks Spence is making the same mistake that countless aging fighters have made confusing want with ability. Ward said wanting to prove you still have it and actually having it are two completely different things, and the only way to find out which one is true is by getting in the ring and potentially getting hurt. Ward mentioned that he's seen too many great fighters tarnish their legacies by coming back when they should have stayed retired, and he's worried Spence is about to join that list. But here's where the story takes another insane turn. Spence has been training at a new facility in Philadelphia, and the sparring reports are completely contradictory. Some witnesses say he looks sharp, focused, and dangerous. Others say he's getting tagged by shots he used to slip easily and looks frustrated when things don't go his way. The most concerning report suggests that Spence has been dropping sparring partners not with skill, but with desperation shots that indicate he's trying to end exchanges quickly instead of boxing through them. That's typically a sign that a fighter doesn't trust his conditioning or ability to sustain long battles. The medical clearance for this fight almost didn't happen. Boxing commissions in multiple states had concerns about clearing Spence to compete after his extended absence and injury history. The Australian commission that's overseeing this bout required additional testing and medical documentation before approving the fight. Sources suggest that Spence barely passed some of the cognitive and physical tests, which raises serious questions about whether he should be fighting anyone, let alone someone as dangerous as Tim Tszyu. Here's the most telling detail about what's really motivating Spence. His social media activity over the past 6 months shows a man who's been watching other fighters get opportunities and recognition that he feels should still belong to him. Every time someone like Ryan Garcia or Gervonta Davis gets a big fight announcement, Spence posts cryptic messages about being overlooked and disrespected. That's not the mindset of someone who's at peace with retirement. That's the mindset of someone who's bitter about being forgotten and desperate to remind people why he used to matter. Now get this, Paulie Malignaggi just revealed something that changes everything about how we should view this fight. Malignaggi said that Spence's team reached out to him about providing commentary and analysis for the fight, but during their conversation, they asked him to avoid mentioning certain aspects of Spence's recent struggles. They specifically didn't want him talking about the car accident, the eye surgeries, or the extended layoff. When a fighter's team is trying to control the narrative before the fight even happens, that usually means they're worried about what the performance is going to reveal. The sparring footage that leaked last week tells 2 different stories depending on who you ask. Spence supporters point to moments where he looks sharp and explosive, but experienced trainers are noticing that he's relying heavily on the same combinations he's always used, which suggests he hasn't really evolved or improved during his time away. More concerning is that he seems to be headhunting instead of working the body, which was always one of his most effective weapons. When fighters start abandoning the techniques that made them successful, it's usually because they don't have the patience or conditioning to execute them properly anymore. Here's what nobody's talking about regarding the weight situation. Spence is moving up to junior middleweight for this fight, which sounds logical given his size and previous struggles making welterweight. But sources close to his camp reveal that he's actually struggling to put on the muscle mass needed to compete effectively at the higher weight class. After years of inactivity and the physical trauma he's endured, his body isn't responding to training the way it used to. He's caught between being too small for 154 pounds and too damaged to make 147 pounds comfortably. The international aspect of this fight is creating complications that go beyond just travel and jet lag. Spence's team is dealing with different broadcast requirements, drug testing protocols, and even referee assignments that they have no control over. Fighting in Australia means playing by Australian rules, and for someone who's already dealing with ring rust and a new training team, these additional variables could be the difference between success and disaster. When you're already operating with thin margins for error, every small disadvantage gets magnified. So here we are, watching one of the most accomplished American fighters of his generation bet everything on a comeback that almost nobody believes in. The financial pressure is real, the physical concerns are legitimate, and the opponent is hungrier than he's ever been. But maybe that's exactly what makes this story so compelling. Maybe Errol Spence Jr. is about to remind everyone why counting out champions is always a dangerous game. Or maybe we're about to witness the final chapter of a career that should have ended on a higher note. Either way, this fight is going to answer questions that have been hanging over boxing for 3 years, and the answers are going to change everything we thought we knew about what Spence has left in the tank.